Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth. What a show we have lined up today. The show that we have lined up today is Tale of Two Athletes, and we'll be mainly talking about Deshaun Watson and Juan Soto. Meanwhile, what I want to do off the bat here is we hope you can stay around for the entire broadcast. I want to talk about my crew, and then they're going to let you know off the bat what they represent, and then we're going to get to the topics. All right, we'll start off with Rick Curti, Mr. Opinion. Go at it, Rick.
Thanks for having me on here. I'm Rick Curti. You can contact me on my website, www.charlottebats.com. We have a petition on there to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte. I'm on Facebook at Charlotte MLB, Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on Twitter, Charlotte Bats Baseball, Instagram at Charlotte Bats, and I'm also on LinkedIn under Rick Curti. If you have any questions or comments, you can email me at cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com.
All right, JB Ellis.
So JB _ the program on Twitter. Sideline Sports every Tuesday night, 8:30. George Jones, Jake Malik, John Shearer, and myself. We have shows 7 nights a week. Make sure you're checking it out. But definitely, great network, and glad to be here with Scott and the South Florida Tribune.
Well, we're glad to have you, JB. We view you as a very good partner as well and a friend of the show. We look forward to doing a lot of projects together with Sideline Sports. I feel that I've known you guys a while. You guys are an extension of the family. With that said, before I go to George Eichorn, I want to let everybody know off the bat here that you can subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on YouTube channel. We have our own YouTube channel, or visit us at www.southfloridatribune.com and follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. So to advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, George Eichorn, let everybody know how they can get hold of you, and also mention about that incredible book that you wrote.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, they can get a hold of me at SNG Sports 99 on Twitter, and also on LinkedIn and Facebook with my full name. And the book that Scott referred to is Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, which is an easy read. Lots of pictures of the famous sportscasters in Detroit and Michigan history, including our very own Scott Morganroth. He's seen with Jimmy Connors and Muhammad Ali, and for $19.99, you can't beat that. As a nice gift for everybody that wants to learn about sports broadcasters in Detroit and Michigan, there's a link on the South Florida Tribune website to get that book from Arcadia Publishing.
Very good.
Good to be here tonight.
Well, always glad to have you. George Eichorn and I created the Sports Exchange back in the 70s, and we've continued it now as we get into the new millennium as well. So it's a tradition that we've had together, and I've worked with this guy for 42 years, a mentor of sorts. Beginning now, he has to piggyback on me to figure out this new media stuff. Good luck, anybody trying to figure it out. To me, it's just like a Rubik's Cube. But the subjects that we have tonight aren't going to be like a Rubik's Cube. They have to be, as I mentioned to you before, the title of the show could not be more appropriate. Tale of Two Athletes, Deshaun Watson, Juan Soto. They're turning the sports world upside down. Well, I think it's safe to say that Cleveland Browns suspect that there will be a 1-year suspension handed to Deshaun Watson, and they made sure that they adjusted his salary as such to make sure that he'll be paid a little bit more money past the first year. So with that said, JB Ellis, why don't you give me your thoughts about the fact that we talk about D-Day with Deshaun Watson? How long do you think the suspension will be? And while I bring this up, MLB sacked Dodgers pitcher Trevor Bauer for 2 years. Now, bear in mind, folks, Watson has 24 cases, 20 are settled, and we're talking about the sex scandal, the massages, and so forth. So, JB, take a crack at this one. This one's pretty interesting.
So looking at the latest news, there are a bunch of stories that it's between 2 to 8 games. I don't get it at all. I mean, he settled 20 cases. In my mind, settling means that you're hiding something. Because if you're innocent, you're not going to settle cases. So to me, that's 20 possibilities. But the NFL isn't using 20 cases. They whittled it down to like about a handful. But they're expecting 2 to 8 games, which doesn't make any sense to me, because if you have 24 cases against you, I don't know. I think the NFL is wrong in this situation. I think a year is minimum, if not longer.
Okay. Well, before I defer over to Rick, let's not forget about the fact that when Ray Rice had that issue a while back, he was exiled from the league. We know that Ray Rice isn't the caliber of player that Deshaun Watson is. And we know the Cleveland Browns, in my opinion, got hosed by the Houston Texans with the Hall of Draft choices that they ended up picking up from the that they ended up showing over to the Texans. So Ray Rice was essentially blackballed because he had that incident in the elevator that was picked up on camera, and he's no longer in the NFL. He's trying to do everything he can to rectify it, but he was playing average football at the time, and they didn't think twice. And Roger Goodell, being the guy that obviously handed down the punishment jury and all that, didn't waste any time. But I think the NFL has been a little bit inconsistent with a lot of their punishments, which I know that they've hired an outside source to do it. And now we'll see where they go. I know the NFLPA is talking about they'll contest anything that they have going on. So there's certainly a lot of layers. With that said, I'll hand the ball off, but not Ray Rice style, over to Rick Curti. Certainly has opinions on this one.
Yeah, well, I call the NFL the NHL, and I don't mean the National Hockey League. It's the National Hypocrite League because that's what they do. They kind of make up their own rules for certain players. I mean, look at my goodness, look at Ray Lewis. The man was charged with 2 counts of murder, and he won a Super Bowl that season. I mean, it's if you're a great player, they'll give you a slap on the wrist. If you're not a great player or whatever, or it's a lot of controversy, they'll hand down the gauntlet, and that's what Roger Goodell does. He's judge, jury, and executioner. And I've heard reports too, it's going to be 2 to 8 games. I mean, Roethlisberger was suspended 4 games, and he wasn't charged with anything. So I mean, it's just there's no consistency there with the NFL. It's been like that. We've seen what the MLB has done with Trevor Bauer. We've seen other people get year-long suspensions for drug abuse and steroid abuse, things like that. And the NFL is there's just no consistency at all. And if you're a great player, you'll get a slap on the wrist. I wouldn't be surprised if Deshaun Watson got only 4 games, to be quite honest with you, because he's a really great player. And I just wouldn't be surprised. And, the Browns, again, are being the Browns. They had a good quarterback there with Mayfield, a young guy. And, they just rolled the dice with Deshaun Watson. They obviously didn't do their homework. And he might lose it for a year. But I think it'll be 4 games, to be quite honest with you. I just don't think they're going to hand it down harsh on him because he's such a great player and he's young. And people want to see him more than they want to see Jacoby Brissett. So I just see a 4-game suspension because the NFL is just so incredibly inconsistent.
Well, you know what, Rick? If indeed you are right, and I'm going to make sure we put it on our Twitter account later, that Rick Curti, Charlotte Bats, thinks it's only going to be 4 games, the Cleveland Brown fans will be rejoicing, and I wouldn't be surprised to see you get a lot of followers after that. Because everybody's expecting the worst 8. Me personally, I think it's going to go a year. But I'll get to my thoughts after George Eichorn chimes in. Go ahead, George.
Well, I echo those sentiments of Rick. I mean, very inconsistent. I mean, you go back to the days of Alex Karras and Paul Hornung and those suspensions back in the 1960s. And you mentioned about Ray Lewis, Scott. And, the commissioners are different. Different times, different commissioners, that sort of thing. But there's no way this guy should get anything less than at least 6 or 7 games, for all these immoral things that he did at the massage parlors. I mean, come on. This kind of stuff has been talked about in the media. It's given a black eye to the Cleveland Browns and to their fans. And there's no way that he should get less than 6 or 7. That being said, it's a crapshoot. The league and the commissioner rules whatever they want to rule. Michael Vick, remember that? The Michael Vick case with the dogs and the betting, and that was a horrendous situation for the league. And they gave him quite a long suspension. No, I don't think it's going to be a full year. I say no. I think it's going to be 6 or 7 games. Does he deserve more? Probably so. But you're right. I mean, he's a star quarterback. He's a potentially future Pro Bowler, but we don't know, or Hall of Famer possibly in his career. We don't know for sure. But the fact of the matter is that Cleveland has built their whole franchise around this kid right now, obviously giving up on Mayfield and going with him. There's no way that they're going to throw the book at him. I don't think so at all. but 6 or 7 is what I would do at least.
All right. Well, I'll give my 2 cents. I know in my mind it should be a year. I really do believe it. And the reason why I believe in it so strongly, even though I don't think it's going to happen, but it's a belief, is because of Trevor Bauer. Now, granted, the only thing Watson has going for him is the fact that he was not indicted on these charges, which probably gives him a little bit more latitude to get the reduced suspension. Now, bear in mind, as I say that, okay, once he did not get indicted, then everything started to come up where now teams got interested in him because they didn't have to deal with the likely possibility that could happen. Mr. J.B. Ellis is wearing a Miami Dolphins jersey for those of you that are watching. And I know that Stephen Ross and the Dolphins talked about acquiring Deshaun Watson. Never came to fruition. But Stephen Ross wanted to make sure that all these legal issues and settle were behind, because we know that this is a make or break year for Tua, but you know full well that they're not going to jump into the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. Now, I think the Miami Dolphins, if Tua doesn't figure out they're going to draft a quarterback instead or replace him at that position. But getting back to Deshaun Watson, to me, I believe a year should be, if for no other reason, okay, because of Trevor Bauer, who got sacked for 2 years. I really believe he deserves a year. But again, the Cleveland Browns front-loaded that thing where they're giving him pennies on the dollar the first year so that they were able to give him most of the money on the back end of the deal. And we all know full well that anybody that's following the NFL circles realizes that these are 1 year contracts basically. But I know this one happens to be $230 million fully guaranteed. So, you know, the Browns have never, well, one of 4 teams that haven't been to a Super Bowl. So certainly they have to hope and pray that Deshaun Watson is the guy that can do it. I've even seen reports where he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league right now. Folks, I'm not buying the Kool-Aid there. The guy was out of action for a year. So let me see how well he recovers from a year off and see what he's got to do. So me personally, I think he should get a year. Do I think the NFL will do it? No. Now, I'll go back to one of Rick Curti's favorite things. If David Stern or Rob Manfred were running this league, he gets a year. But again, in the life of hypotheticals, there's perception and there is reality. So there you have it. So, all right, let's talk about another athlete who's definitely going to be making a lot of money. And when you have an agent by the name of Scott Boras representing you, who's made a lot of guys a lot of money. We know Detroit, Max Scherzer is one of them, but he's got a million of them. But recently, Juan Soto turned down a 15-year, $440 million extension with the Washington Nationals. He is a home run derby champion. And I think part of the reason that he did that is, number one, he is concerned about the new ownership, and he doesn't want to commit to an organization and be dealt with a rebuild. Bring in Bryce Harper, who didn't know what was going to happen. It just so happens that Washington got their title before Bryce did. That will be for another day. Now, I know that the Boston Red Sox doesn't appear to be interested in it, but I'm going to throw out some teams here. I'm going to go to each and every one of you, okay? And we'll start off with Rick. I'm going to talk about one team at a time. Give me a brief answer because I got 5 or 6, and everybody gets a crack at this. Okay, Rick, start off with the Chicago White Sox. And by the way, I believe the Charlotte Knights are the AAA team for the White Sox. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, so Soto to the White Sox, yes or no?
No.
Okay, why?
I just don't think they're going to go that far. I just don't. I mean, it's a lot of money. It's guaranteed money, unlike the NFL. I just don't see Reinsdorf doing that.
San Diego Padres.
No.
Why?
I just think they have a lot of young people there. They want to build up with a young franchise, see what they have, and they got Tatis there.
Well, they don't seem to be hesitant to throw their money around. And we obviously know that in recent years they have spent money, playing from what I hear, a beautiful ball.
Yeah, I just don't see them going out for him.
St. Louis Cardinals.
Possibly. I've heard that the Cardinals were one of the top teams. So I'm going to go and say maybe. I don't know yet.
New York Mets.
No, I don't see them doing that. No.
Really? Why is that?
I think they're going to go after Judge.
Okay. New York Yankees.
Yes, absolutely. Yankees got all the money. They got their own TV station. They're loaded. No salary cap. Absolutely.
And last but not least, your hometown LA Dodgers.
Yep, they will. Mookie Betts has already said that they wanted him. He said he looked good in blue. They were one of the fans at the Dodger game was chanting Soto to the Dodgers, and they have lots and lots of money. They like to make a big splash, so absolutely the Dodgers.
Okay, I'll turn it over to George Eichorn. We're going to go back to where we started. We'll talk about Chicago White Sox.
Well, they're still struggling at the gate. Number one, okay, their fan base is still very weak, and it has been for years. They sure need a kick in the pants and a shot in the arm. Tony La Russa isn't the answer at the manager position. I'm not discounting the White Sox as a possibility.
Okay, I don't believe that any of us believe that the Boston Red Sox are going to be. What about you, George? I'll get into mine after I go defer to
Boston.
Yeah.
I don't know. They got such a big payroll as it is right now. I mean, I'd never say never with Boston. They do love going after the free agents. JD Martinez is nearing sort of the end of his career pretty soon, a couple more years. I mean, they're always a possibility. I mean, they do play the game and they play it big with money.
And not only that, Scott Boras represents JD Martinez. He does Soto. I understand agent relations at times can factor in. So you're not ruling out the Red Sox. All right, what about San Diego Padres?
They have a tendency of spending money the last several years. You're right, Scott. I know that Rick doesn't think there's a possibility there. I mean, it's not far from the LA market. I mean, I wouldn't say no to that, but I think it's more of a stretch.
St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, well, they're always in the game, aren't they, for some of the big stars? I mean, Pujols is in the twilight days of his career now. They're going to be probably looking for some more oomph in the lineup, and Soto can provide that. So I'd say 50-50 chance on St. Louis.
All right, well, let's go to the Big Apple, New York Mets.
Well, the Mets, they're starting to play some great ball this year, obviously. Getting back to what Rick had said earlier, I don't particularly think that they've got the money and ready to give him right now. I don't think it's going to happen right away. So they got a lot of money tied up with what they got right now. I'd say no to the Mets.
New York Yankees.
Yankees, yes, definitely a possibility. Stanton and Judge are probably not going to both stay there. They're not going to be able to, or probably want both of them to stay there. If they go, they can't stay there, obviously, if they're going after Soto. So I would think the Yankees are a good possibility.
LA Dodgers.
Yeah, another good possibility. They love to throw the money around. They've got the money. They've got a sold out stadium basically almost every game out there. I'd say the Dodgers are a strong possibility for Soto.
Okay, JB, it's your turn. We'll start from the beginning. Chicago White Sox. After all, you have a little bit of ties to the Windy City. I know you do a Cubs thing, but obviously you have ties to the Windy City. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, giving you the Windy City moniker, speaking for both teams. So what's your thought about maybe Juan Soto going over to the White Sox?
They're 3.5 games out of the wild card. They're always, they have a lot of young talent. The question is, are they going to spend the money long term to keep them? And I don't see the White Sox as the team to do that. They just don't seem to do it with anybody. Why would they do it with Soto?
All right, well, why don't we throw the Boston Red Sox your way? What do you think?
The Boston Red Sox may be interested because they want to prevent them from going to the Yankees, because that's the answer when the Yankees lose Judge. If you get Soto long term, now you got, you can give up Judge and not miss much of a beat.
San Diego Padres.
They've been spending money the last few years. They have to keep up with the Dodgers and the Giants. So, if they want to be relevant out west, they have to put their names in the hat. And they're a decent young team. They have a lot of young talent. Never hurts to add another good guy.
St. Louis Cardinals.
They're involved in everything. They're a team that never goes away. They get older, but yet, they sign quality pieces. Goldschmidt, they brought Pujols back. Arenado, that trade, that was amazing to pick up. It wouldn't be shocking to see them in it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll comment on it now. I don't know why. For some reason, I wouldn't rule out the White Sox. I really wouldn't. You never know. I mean, how desperate they are to try to be relevant in a weak division. You know, if you have an impact player like him in a big city, you know, let's face the reality. If you're going to win, I wouldn't mind going in the American League Central Division. You know, so you're always, and of course, you know, I agree with you, George, that Tony La Russa may be managing those last several games, and I think he's done. They'll bring on a younger manager. Red Sox, I wouldn't put nothing past them either. Again, Scott Boras does have relationships with, you know, players, and as we saw that with the Tigers and Max Scherzer, I mentioned that earlier. JD Martinez, we don't know how long JD will be there. Will be another conversation. But Boston's not afraid to go ahead and throw out the money. And I'll backtrack to what JB said. Okay, if you're looking to keep up with the Yankees, you make a splash, and that's why you just don't rule out the Boston Red Sox. San Diego Padres, you know what? They aren't afraid to spend money. This is a team that, right when you think now, how they spend it, whether it's wisely or not, is another story. But San Diego is the only game in town in San Diego, and you can be relevant there. They haven't won a World Series, so I don't know. I'm not so sure I would really go out there and rule out the Padres whatsoever. Now, the most interesting one of the group is the St. Louis Cardinals. Nobody thought Mark McGwire would stay there, but one little thing happened along the lines. You know what that was, guys? He liked it there. Let me tell you, don't sit here and tell me that the St. Louis Cardinals fans aren't some of the best in baseball. Some of the things that intrigue me about the Cardinals, though, is they tease you a little bit in that market. Is St. Louis a big market or a small market? They're not afraid to spend some money out there. They really are not. But when you get there, they like it. You know, I like to play in front of a packed house all the time. I really do. Anytime you can bring in a guy like Mark McGwire, okay, and all they do is watch him hit home runs. Forget about the steroid stuff. I don't even care because everybody knew about that anyways. But nobody stopped him from showing up earlier and dumping money into the concession stands and buying food and eating all that. But Mark McGwire liked it. So I don't know. I guess maybe time permitting, I'll ask you guys, is St. Louis considered a big market or a small market? I don't know. But why wouldn't I want to go to St. Louis if the opportunity is there? And again, with Albert Pujols on the outs, you never know whether or not Juan Soto would end up going there. Now let's go to the Big Apple, okay? The New York Mets. I may be the only one that believes they will spend the money, and I'll tell you why. Let's talk about the recent collective bargaining agreement. The owner, Steve Cohen. What do you think that they incorporated in that collective bargaining agreement? Was it like a 4-tier threshold called the Steve Cohen tax? Ever heard of that one before? This guy doesn't care. He'll spend money. If he enjoys Bobby Bonilla Day writing that check every year, in my opinion, okay, I would actually venture the Mets could be the odds-on favorite to actually sign this guy. And if they don't sign him, they're definitely going to get Aaron Judge unless the Yankees go ahead and keep him. Now, I can tell you this. I was watching First Take today, and Steve and Mad Dog Russo, okay, was saying the Yankees generally don't let good players get away, and they don't get outbid if they don't want to leave. It's a matter of getting the money. But bear in mind, we don't have George Steinbrenner running the team either, or this deal would have been done. So as far as I'm concerned, I would say the Mets have a much better chance than most people really think. On to the Yankees, okay? I'll go back to what JB said, okay, and that's this. Okay, how do you rule them out? Do they have prospects so they're willing to go out there and do what they've got to do? You just never know. So I would never rule out the Yankees. And last but not least, you have the LA Dodgers. Okay, yeah, they'll spend money like there's no end to it. They will. So with all due respect, you've got to really go ahead and consider all those markets. So what now that we've talked about these two particular things, I want to go out there and add a couple of other things. I want to get your impressions of the All-Star game. Rick?
I think it was about time they had it at Dodger Stadium. They should have had it at Dodger Stadium many, many, many years ago. Yeah, I think it was great. It was electrifying. I think it was a great game. I mean, the American League came back and won, and the home run hitting contest was fantastic. So I think it was an A+.
Okay, go ahead, Rick. Say that again.
I think it was great. It's about time that they had it in Dodger Stadium. They should have had it there many, many, many years ago. It was a great game. It was a great comeback from the American League. And the home run hitting contest was fantastic, especially when you saw a 40-year-old Pujols do such a great job.
And you're right, Rick. This is George Eichorn. You're watching us here on the Sports Exchange. Rick, you hit it right on the head. Baseball waited 42 years. Excuse me? We're talking the Los Angeles market. 42 years is an embarrassment from Dodger Stadium hosting that All-Star game. Shame on you, MLB. And I know it got knocked around a couple of years because of the work stoppage or whatever, COVID, okay, whenever. It was plugged in a couple of years after the fact, but that's ridiculous in a major market like that. I will give kudos, though, to Fox Sports. They tried some different things. I'm not a big fan about miking the players, and I know that it worked okay with the two Yankee guys, but the miking of the players and cameras on the helmets of the umpires or on the catchers, they're trying some innovative things. They're trying to make the game more interesting. It is the number one all-star game in sports. We know that. No question about it, ahead of football, basketball, and hockey. But the baseball all-star game, you're right, Rick. They did a super good job on the home run derby. They did a nice salute to Jackie Robinson. I appreciated that in what they did with the holograms and that, and saluting him, and Denzel Washington coming out, and of course honoring Mrs. Jackie Robinson's widow on her 100th birthday. So I'd say they did I'll give them an A- on the effort. What do you think, JB?
So, first thing with the mics on the players, it was interesting. The pitcher pitching and talking, But I thought, if you're going to do that, the announcers have to get with it. I believe it was Stanton when Freeman was up. He said that, Freeman's been the same way since high school. We used to work out together. There wasn't a follow-up question to that. If you're a journalist and you hear that Stanton, was playing with Freeman in high school, they knew each other, there's so many questions you could ask. Why wouldn't you have had a follow-up question? So I just thought that the journalist side dropped the ball on that. I kind of like because it's a special game, having the mics I thought was okay. The MLB All-Star Game is always the top All-Star game in all sports. The only one that comes close is the NBA. Besides for that, the other two leagues, NHL is okay. It's a decent game, but there's no defense. And the NFL, hard to get guys to want to hit each other, an extra game, so it doesn't really work. Having it at Dodger Stadium, one of the best stadiums out there, 42 years is way too long. I know it would have been 40 if it wasn't for COVID. I get that. That's still a long time. But I think that had to do with all the new stadiums that were coming in. They had issues with, trying to locate it in, like, stadiums that were going out. Like when Yankee Stadium closed, they had it there the last year. So I definitely get that. And how nice was it to see a pitcher's duel, 3-2, a real baseball game? These games every night, 11-7, 7-1, 3-2 from the All-Star game. Best hitters of the game. Good to see pitchers take over. So I thought that, to me, I enjoyed it. The home run contest was phenomenal. I'm glad Soto won. I had picked him before it started, so I was glad to see that.
And it's good to see a relief pitcher like JB Ellis here as well, since we were having a lot of fun with this whole situation. But yeah, let's talk about the All-Star game as I can. Glad that, I think it was pretty neat, 3-2. What the amazing thing about it being a Marlins guy like I am, though, is only in Hollywood would you have, Clayton Kershaw go ahead and start at Dodger Stadium. Personally, I think Sandy Alcantara deserved to be the starter for the All-Star game. He's having a sensational year. The guy's going deep into games. And if there were any 29 other parts but Dodger Stadium, then there's no question Sandy's starting. So, yeah, call me a converted Marlin guy. And then again, I should. I mean, this is a team I work with now. But, yeah, I like 3-2 games. I like the fact that Giancarlo Stanton went ahead and hit a 2-run shot in his hometown. I like the fact that a guy from the Minnesota Twins, Byron Buxton, hit the game winner on the big stage. So when you look at some of these different things going on, but more power to Clayton Kershaw. And how entertaining was it that Clayton Kershaw picks off Shohei Ohtani on first base? Who saw that one coming? You know,
Yeah.
you
That's
tell
a
me,
good point,
George.
That's
Scott.
pretty wild.
Yeah, isn't it?
I
Yeah.
have no problems with Kershaw starting that game. He's not done it in his career, which is ridiculous in his career. Cy Young Award winner, World Series champion, pitcher of the year, and he's never started an All-Star game. So, especially on his own stage there, like you said, your guy from Miami, he'll get his chance, but Kershaw deserved the chance to start this one. But yeah, that was a pickoff. That was a pickoff for generations, huh? Here he picks off.
You know,
That was amazing.
I don't care what language you're in, whether you're a Japanese guy, whether you're a Korean guy. If you would have saw the look on Shohei Ohtani when he got picked off, it wouldn't matter what planet you're on, whether
Yeah.
it's Jupiter, Mars, or Saturn. Shohei Ohtani knew I am out, and I
He
can't
was-
believe it happened in Southern California.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah,
It
is
is.
embarrassing.
Yeah, I got to tell
Yeah.
you a funny story that occurred to me over the weekend, though. I'm covering an Inter Miami soccer game, okay? And I don't know the guy's name, but anyways, they bring on the Heineken man of the match, okay? And all of a sudden, this guy is speaking in Spanish, and I don't know anything about Spanish. I really don't. So, for all you Hispanics people, don't give me a hard time because it wasn't my second language. Years ago, I took Hebrew. That was another lifetime ago. And at the end, okay, the translator had to go ahead and echo my question at that game in the post game media availability. And then the guy afterwards all said and done, oh, I could have done this in English too. I'm thinking, hey, listen, dude, I'm from Detroit. So Spanish isn't considered a prevalent language up here. Not going to get into what it really is, but it is in Spanish. I don't think we have a big Spanish population in Metro Detroit, do we, George?
Not too big, no.
Right. So my point is that Shohei Ohtani getting picked off the way he did by Clayton Kershaw, to me, is a universal language of, as Rick Curti would say, embarrassment. So,
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah. I agree. I thought it was a great game, the All-Star game. I'm sure the numbers are probably still, not as great as Fox would like, but Joe Buck, no Joe Buck this year. I think his new the new guy did a good job. I think he did a really good
Joe
job.
Davis.
And of course, Davis, yeah. And Smoltz is always a good analyst. So, I mean, they don't lose much there. But, they tried some innovative things, like you said, with the microphones and do that. And, yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it was a really exciting game. And obviously the fans just loved it, too. So, enough excitement there to last. But like you said, it was a pitcher's duel, and that's very unusual in the All-Star game.
Yeah, I met Joe Davis about a year and a half, 2 years ago with Southern California Sports broadcaster thing, and Joe was a nice guy. You talk about a guy who went out there and had to fill giant steps. I mean, my God, how bigger do you get than Vin Scully, really? I mean, stepping into that situation.
Yeah.
He's done a really good job. I mean, let's face the reality. I don't know whether the ratings reflect Joe Buck not being there or not. I don't know. Everybody's gotten used to it. Baseball is one of those types of sports where you go out there and you get used to names being associated with the sport. Joe Buck had been a name associated with Fox baseball as well as football. Well, I don't think it'll be a big deal football-wise. I mean, it is what it is. He's moving on to ESPN. It's not like he's leaving the sport. He's just going to a different network, which, by the way, his wife has to work for. But, getting back to what you guys were saying, okay, in terms of being able to have John Smoltz give the Blue Jays pitcher advice, I think that was great. I don't know about you, but when you have a guy up in the booth telling a guy what to do, I mean, we've seen some innovations in sports through the years, but I think, and it's all in entertainment anyways, does it really matter about one pitcher giving another pitcher advice? Rick, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, he's a pitcher. I mean, that's just him. He sees that, and it's kind of like he's just giving his own feedback because he's got that experience. I mean, he's in the Hall of Fame. And, he played for those great Braves teams, and you just can't get that out of your system. It's just like you see it in the NFL when you see Troy Aikman talk about, I don't like his delivery. He didn't throw the ball good. This is what – that's just – even though they're not athletes, they're still athletes. And when they see something they don't like, they're going to address it. Whether they try to or not, they just can't get it out of their system because they're so competitive.
What about you, George?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Rick. I mean, it is a very competitive atmosphere, and it's just I've never been a huge fan of talking to the players, but like you guys said, I mean, this is a special occasion. This is a special game. It's the All-Star game. You're trying to attract a new audience, especially younger people. And, to being able to talk to the catcher, talk to the pitcher, talk to the outfielders, but I agree with what JB had said earlier, is you'd like to have some follow-up questions that would really get at the questions that are being asked. But you got to remember, they're in the middle of the game. This conversation's not going to be very long. Their answers can't be really long, especially if you're talking to the pitcher on the air live. So I think that they did as best they could with that innovation, and trying something different, obviously, for the All-Star game is good. I don't mind that at all.
JB?
Yeah, I like the whole question thing. And like I said, I just, I don't understand if you're talking to Stanton and he's saying, well, Freeman's done that since we were in high school playing together. You're still talking to him. A simple follow-up. What was Freddie like in high school? Was he always this good or something? Did you know you guys? Do you ever think you'd be playing against each other at All-Star game? Simple follow-up. That's our job as journalists. If you're going to do it. Otherwise, don't. But, it was fun to see. I always like when they have the interactions. It changes the whole dynamic, and it's an exhibition game. It doesn't mean anything. So have fun with it. I mean, they were going to have a home run contest if it was tied. So, obviously it's not a real game anymore.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that said, okay, JB, thank you very much for bringing that up. Now I'm going to talk about the home run derby there at the end. We know once upon a time, okay, there was a tie in Milwaukee. No, not at the Milwaukee Milkman Stadium, Rick. So wait for that reference. Leave it alone. I'm the one who insanely brought it up. All right, JB, tell me, were you looking for a home run derby at the end of this thing at all?
I actually enjoyed the fact that it was a 3-2 game. In hockey, the shootout was like the greatest thing. Like when there was a tie, I love it in hockey. But baseball, I just want them to keep playing. If you're a baseball fan, you want to see baseball. You don't want to see gimmicks. It's the baseball game is poetic. There's a thing of beauty about, what is it? Takers, Nevers to Chance, that whole poem about the double play. I mean, baseball's just. If you're a baseball fan, you want to see baseball. You don't want to see gimmicks. You don't want to see all this other stuff. I mean, the mic part, that's gimmicky, but they're still playing. It doesn't impact the game. I can deal with that. The home run thing, because it's the All-Star game, would have been fun to see. But I was enjoying a 3-2 baseball game with the best hitters in the world. And they couldn't do anything.
What about you, Rick?
Yeah, it would have been interesting. I'm a purist. I mean, I just love to see 1-0 games, 2-1. I don't want to see all these home runs, but I get it what the MLB is doing. They're like the NFL. They got the mic'd up players. They got the mic'd up coaches, and the Pro Bowls and all that stuff. So I get why they're doing all this stuff because they've lost a lot of fans. MLB, the young people are not watching the games. They have to do stuff to bring the fans back, the young fans. So if they're going to do a home run hitting contest, to break a tie, then they're going to have a home run hitting contest. They're just trying to think outside the box because they're trying to make the game shorter and more entertaining to get the young people back. And so as much as I'm not a fan of it, I get what they're doing. I understand what they're doing. And they're just trying to do something to get the young people back into watching the game. So I'm glad it wasn't a tie. I don't really want to see a home run income, but if that's what happened, it would have been talked about all day, no doubt about it. So I'm sure MLB would have had no problem with that. So, but for me, I'm like JB. I just like to see a 1-0, 2-1, 3-2 game. And I just thought it was perfect that ended 3-2.
What about you, George?
Yeah, I wouldn't have been a big fan of a home run contest. I mean, what would we do? Pause and bring the screens out for the pitchers? I mean, did they have that all set up? Who was going to be the bullpen pitchers to come out like the Derby? I mean, everybody has their own pitching coach or assistant, for the Derby. I didn't quite know how those mechanics were going to be worked out, or you weren't going to use major league pitchers, I wouldn't think, because you had 10, 12 guys already pitching in that game already by the time you got to the extra innings, so you only got a few relievers still left in the bullpen. I don't know. I know what you're saying, Rick. I mean, yeah, you got to appeal to the youngsters and all that, but there is some sense of tradition. Although for the All-Star game, like you guys said earlier, I mean, it is an exhibition. But I wasn't a big fan of going for the home run derby. I just don't know about the mechanics, how it would be worked out. Obviously, television probably wanted it. The guys on Fox and whoever else was televising the game, obviously ESPN radio and stuff. But maybe maybe the fans and the commissioner, thought it would be the best thing to do. And of course, the players had to approve it. I mean, it wasn't. It had to be go past the Players Association, so it was all approved by them too. But I wasn't looking forward to it. No, I'm a purist, and I think it was just it was like you guys said, it was a good game, solid game, and I'm not ashamed to watch a 3-2 game, even if it is an all-star game.
Well, me either. I've always been a strong proponent of that low scoring 2-1, 1-0, 3-2 game, 1-run game all the time. And what we did is we saw baseball at its best, where you have Giancarlo Stanton, the hometown kid, tying the game, and then Byron Buxton hitting the game winner. And every team was able to use 9 or 10 pitchers, so some of these guys got in the game. Now, I guess the one guy who was probably happy was the Tampa Bay Rays game guy, McClanahan, who ended up getting a no decision out of it because he probably gave up the most hits and runs anyway, so he got a mulligan for it as well. So, yeah, no, I don't think in a home run derby, but I understand that to do it. And I'll be a little bit biased here. I was happy to see 3 of my guys, the Miami Marlins, even make it to the All-Star game. Jazz Chisholm was voted in, something which is good for us down here. Even though he didn't play, he was still voted in, thankfully. So Miami's getting a little respect there. Garrett Cooper, nobody probably knew anything about this guy, and Sandy Alcantara. I was really happy with Joe Davis and John Smoltz that even though Sandy did not get the start, I have to tell you, I was really rooting for Sandy to get the win. When I see Don Mattingly, the next time I get a chance to talk about this, and I have a good working relationship with Don, okay? He was a manager with the Dodgers before he came here to Miami. And we know, and I'll bet Don and I will definitely agree on this. You were in LA, you know it was all Hollywood, you know it was Clayton. But I think the next best outcome that could have happened is Sandy Alcantara, who I knew was going to come in the second inning. If the second inning is a consolation start for the first inning, I was praying to the baseball gods, get this guy a win, please, okay? Let Clayton Kershaw have a clean inning, and Sandy Alcantara, what does he do? Strikes out a couple of guys. So I was pulling, and I've talked to Sandy. He's a good guy, and the Marlins did lock him up long term, is what they did. So, it'll be interesting to see what we do over at the trade deadline. But name a person out there who's not rooting for Sandy Alcantara, who to me reminds me of Roy Oswalt, is a guy that goes deep into, and of course, Roy Halladay here, a pair of Roys into this equation. This guy here is a stud, and I get to see Pablo Lopez tomorrow. So, all right, the one topic I do have a little time to get to, and I'm going to keep it baseball related, is this, okay? I know it's one that Rick Curti loves to talk about, but we're going to address it right now anyhow. But we don't have a time. We'll devote an entire show to it later on. But Rob Manfred said, Oakland, you need to get it figured out. Tigers are playing Oakland tomorrow, okay, at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum, as I'll call it. So, George, let's talk about the fact that Oakland right now has about a couple of years to figure it out. 22 is just about over. You got 23, 24. Tell me what your perspective is of Oakland, California, not Oakland County.
They got to get out of that stadium. Everybody knows that. The stadium is not fit for baseball anymore. They've had so many chances, so many votes. In the land property, I know that they seem to be a little bit closer to getting some riverfront property to build the new stadium, but they can't get over the final hurdle every time. I mean, I think, Manfred's just got to tell them, okay, hey, you got X amount of time, 1 year, 1.5 years, 1 month, whatever it is, to get this thing settled. If you can't get this settled between the legislature and the city council and the mayor and the property owners and the housing and all that stuff, all these issues that are affecting Oakland's decision whether to stay or to move, it's got to get settled once and for all. Come on, this has dragged on way too long. The attendance has been horrible there for years and years. Thank God they've had a good team, for many of those years, small market mentality from ownership, but not this year. They stink this year. But I agree that they've got to get off the dime. This thing's got to get settled once and for all.
Well, that's how they lost the Raiders, because they kept screwing around all these years, and that's why the Raiders bolted to Las Vegas. Rick Curti, you're going to pick it up from there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying this for many, many years. Oakland's moved to Las Vegas. It's inevitable. That's where the money's at. Online gaming, fantasy sports has just changed the whole atmosphere of professional sports in Las Vegas. And they have a great hockey team. The Raiders have a great stadium. And the president of the A's has been there several times looking at property. I think he's got three locations that he's looking at. So he wants to go there. Manfred has already told the governor of Nevada that we have the votes from the owners to move the A's to Las Vegas. And to me, it's inevitable. They just got to build them a stadium. And Oakland is done. They've been done. That stadium is a complete dump. They have sewage and rat problems there. They're averaging like 4,000 at a game, where it's like municipal stadium. You know, they added it on for football, and you know it's like what 80-some thousand. You see 4,000 at a game. It looks like a ghost town. The team stinks. I'm glad Bob Melvin left. I'm glad they probably told them, you know what, we're going to rebuild. It's going to be a mess. And I don't blame him for bolting to San Diego. So good for him, because he's a great manager and he shouldn't be stuck in that mess. And so it's just inevitable that they'll move there. And this has been going on for like 20-some years. And it's like, hurry up, Oakland, get your act together. But they're going to move to Las Vegas. It's just inevitable.
And well, anytime you have a dilemma that goes on for 10, 15, 20 years, it's at some point that you have to get like the Raiders. Okay, they wanted to go back to Los Angeles. They did with the Rams. After all, they won a Super Bowl there, but the Chargers ended up going. But as it turns out, you know, it may have worked out just as well that they wound up in Vegas. But that thought, JB Ellis. Okay, let's talk about the Oakland situation, which is taking on a meaning of its own, because to me, it's like you said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, isn't it?
It's pretty disgusting that, you know, the A's have had such a storied history in Oakland. You know, they've won with nothing. Them and Tampa, the two teams you can look at that you give them the league minimum, what you could pay, they find ways to get winning teams on the field. And nobody wants to go and see them play. They play great baseball. You know, I mean, this year, every team's going to go through a down year. It happens. No team can win every year. But they put such a great product on the field year after year. You know, the fans, because the stadium's miserable, the owner doesn't want to spend money. You know, you got to spend money to make money. I get you want a stadium, but you got to show your fans that, you know, you want to keep them, and you spend money, and then they'll help support and make the community do it. If you don't have the fans behind you, what are you going to do? They're not going to say, let's go ahead and go build the stadium. You know, it goes hand in hand. And this has been going on for way too long. The question is, when do they move to Vegas? How long does it take to get a stadium built? And, you know, another team out of the Bay Area, which, you know, great for the Giants.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's you bring up a lot of good points there. First of all, you're talking about the fact that the Giants will have the whole market. And I know when the Raiders ended up going, that the Raiders became the 49ers, and they had to kind of get used to bringing them back there again. You know, so yeah, and of course, now the interesting part about the Oakland A's history started off with the Philadelphia A's, the Kansas City A's, end up with the Oakland A's, and now they end up in Vegas, which is inevitable. And then we talk about the Warriors. I think they started off as a Philadelphia Warriors, and they subsequently wound up in the Bay Area. So it seems like there's a little instability or relocation history when it comes to these Bay Area teams. Well, we've got a few minutes to get to this, so why don't we stick to the Vegas theme? And I think we can all kind of laugh at this. After all, let's face the reality. You know, I've enjoyed being on this show. I love it when other guys pick up the slack, because technology happens to all of us. But the fact that we're able to keep it going and joke around about it is great. So I'm going to go from one sense of humor to another. And you guys don't know where I'm going with this one, but that's okay. You know, when we talk about baseball, there are curveballs. So I'm going to throw the biggest one on the planet. Let's talk about my favorite league. Okay, no, yes, the NDL, the National Drama League, but we're going to do it in a very different way, Summer League style, where the Summer League, NBA Summer League, handed out championship rings, which I consider the closest thing to a participation trophy. And guess who got honored? The Portland Trailblazers. I looked at those rings on the internet, and I just could not help myself. Like, wow. How much are they paying for a summer league championship ring? I don't know. I guess for all the guys that may or may never make it to the NBA, at least they have a piece of jewelry. My advice, guys, is insure it, because who knows if you get another one in the big show. All right, George Eichorn, you're giving me a Warren smile, so give me a little take on this.
Well, the Pistons had a good team this year in the summer league, but I think it's a joke, Scott. And guys, no way do you award rings for something like that. Okay, it's just a very short time frame. Yes, I know they're putting out all their efforts they can as players. They got to. They're professionals, getting paid for that. But my goodness, come on. We're not talking about the NBA playoffs and the grind of 7-game series and head-to-head and traveling and all the stuff that we know that those teams go through. The Golden State Warriors winning it this year, obviously. And, of course, the Detroit Pistons have 3 championships. As you know, Scott, we lived through that glory of those bad boys and those Joe Dumars team and obviously then as general manager and Rasheed Wallace and that group. I'm just saying that, no, that's silly. Don't give rings out for something like that. Come on.
They did. All right, Rick Curti, smiling here from all the way from Charlotte to Winston-Salem. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a joke. I mean, this thing is just an exhibition. I mean, it's so silly and dumb what the NBA's done. And of course, they got these young, the generation of these young players and these young people that you have to give them these participation trophies and tell them, you're really a good person, and give them hugs and kisses and we love you. And, you got to make them feel special and wanted. And it's stupid. It's just it's an exhibition game, for God's sakes, So why are you going to give a trophy out or a ring to some meaningless, who cares? I mean, LeBron James was in that stupid Drew League. I don't even know nothing about that. Are they going to give a trophy for that? Are they going to give him a ring? Probably, because he's such a crybaby. I mean, what's next? They're going to put a banner for winner of the summer league and all this stuff. I mean, you might as well give a ring out to players who show up to practice and who shoot the ball good. Or it's just completely stupid. And Adam Silver is an embarrassment, and he's just a complete sap. And I mean, I'm embarrassed for Adam Silver in the NBA.
All right, JB, what about the old participation rights?
It was genius, because nobody in their right mind pays attention to the summer league. So you got to hype it up. You got to make it the biggest thing in the world, because football, what has football done? Why is football the sport right now? Because it's become a 12-month news cycle. Football's in the news every day, all the time. So what does the NBA need to do? We're going to give away championship rings, so we're going to make these guys want to play. They're going to play hard because they're going for a ring. So if they play hard, people may pay attention, and now the NBA will still be in the news throughout the first part of the summer. So it was genius. Marketing genius. Do they deserve a ring for the Summer League? No, that's an absolute joke. But the idea behind it, I love. I see why they did it. And, the one thing I got to say, Adam Silver and the NBA, they do a lot of great things for marketing. MLB needs to pay attention to what the NFL and the NBA do so they can get back to relevance. But I thought it was a genius marketing move. Stupid idea, but marketing-wise, genius.
Well, I can tell you one thing, no matter what we really think of that decision, this Portland version team that have played in the Summer League doesn't represent Rip City, okay? Clyde Drexler isn't walking in that door. And I can tell you when the Pistons beat them up, and everybody thought back in the day, George, the Pistons had that long drought over in Portland. Well, it's safe to say that they swept the Blazers back then. So that's pretty, I guess maybe I'm not taking sides with this. I think it's stupid. I really do, giving a participation ring. But hey, let's face it, the almighty dollar rules. And if that's exactly what the NBA is looking to do, that's fine. And when you talk about a news cycle, let's go back to what we talked about, the NDL, the National Drama League, if it weren't for us journalists, right, JB? Because you do consider yourself a journalist, right? Then maybe we should be going ahead and bowing to Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, right? Or shall we not go that far?
No, I mean, you mentioned, Kevin Durant is a clown. I have no respect for him. I don't even like to mention him by name. He's known as the clown from now on. Let me be traded because I have to actually work to win a championship.
Yeah.
Sad.
Is a hypocrite too, because he criticized LeBron for going to Miami and joining all these super teams, and yet he joined a super team in the Warriors when they won 73 games, and now he joins another super team with Brooklyn, and now he wants to go back. And I heard Steph Curry's trying to recruit him to go back to Golden State, and so now he's going to go back to big. So he's not only a clown, he's a hypocrite, and he's such a crybaby. I don't know what happened when he was in Oklahoma. He was great. He was quiet, put up these numbers, and ever since he left Oklahoma, he has just been a total crybaby, whiner, complainer, and he's like LeBron, wants to win championships the easy way.
He picked his team. He picked who he wanted on his team. Great job. He's a bum. He's a clown. Send him to the Alaska,
Send him to the Kings. I want to see him in Sacramento.
No, send him to the European League. He's a bum.
Just want to remind everybody, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, or go to www.southfloridatribune.com and follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. Also, to advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. What's amazing about what we're doing here is it's great that we've been able to touch base on, obviously, the key topics before we call it a night. When we talk about Deshaun Watson, Juan Soto, it's great that we had an opportunity to address the All-Star game. And you know what? Why not have a little bit of fun with the National Drama League, obviously, the championship rings, and I think that's what makes what we do really a lot of fun, is we can address a lot of different things and be able to be joking around. Sometimes the body language is great when guys like George Eichorn gives a thumbs down to the participation trophy. And yes, I always look forward to JB, coming out with a different jersey every week. You're only going to be able to see that if you watch the broadcast anyway. And Rick Curti, Rick Curti comes out with his, like I am. We wear these glasses. Of course, Eichorn's been wearing glasses.
Nice studious look.
Yeah, it's okay. So, but meanwhile, great show for my group tonight. Obviously, JB, Ellis, George Eichorn, and Rick Curti were all the Raleigh fingers here as we kibitz around about our technology, but it all worked out in the end. We were able to take her from start to finish, and I'm glad that we had a lot of fun talking about the latest topics here in the world of sports. And as I mentioned to you before, the purpose of this show is to turn the sports world upside down. And you can rest assured that Deshaun Watson and Juan Soto did exactly that. So, meanwhile, on behalf of Rick Curti, JB Ellis, and George Eichorn, my name is Scott Morganroth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange, and we will catch you next Wednesday night. Have a great weekend, everybody, and be safe. Goodbye now.
Good night.
Good night.